Welcome to Carriers of the Legend, the podcast where we share the memories we've made while playing The Legend of Zelda throughout our lives.
This week, Anthony, I think we're talking about a game that I remember very well, and that's Ocarina of Time. Is that right?
That's right, Ocarina of Time this week. Let's go. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was first released on the N64 November 1998, and this was the first time that The Legend of Zelda was in the third dimension. So unlike the games before it where it was a bird's eye top-down view, we were now seeing behind Link, and you were able to view around him with the different camera angles and things of the sort. So that was pretty cool.
It was hard to get used to.
I'm
Coming
sure.
from like top down, coming from 4 directions, 8 directions. Once you get into Super Nintendo, it was hard to get used to that joystick because you also had to hold the controller right in the middle, which was completely backwards to at least get used to it.
Right, that was definitely a pain in the butt. I was just playing a little bit earlier today, holding the controller. I realized you have to kind of tilt it to hold it the right way, and my fingers are kind of cramping a little bit.
But it used to be so comfortable. Like, what happened?
You think so?
That I think it used to be really comfortable once you got used to it, but you could never get to the left button in time.
Right, yeah, because there's 3 handles, and we don't have 3 hands.
Yeah,
I don't know what they were thinking when they made that controller.
I don't know either.
But anyways, I think that's a great way to launch into question number 1. And so question 1 is, what did your life look like the first time you played this video game?
That's a good question. I remember this year. It was actually my favorite year. It was my favorite Christmas because that was the year that I got a PlayStation and an N64. But what had happened is we always went to the same game shop. My mom and I would always go to this small game shop because GameStop, those other big box stores, hadn't really been around yet. And we grew up in a county in Pennsylvania that just didn't have a whole lot around it. So we went to the shop. I kept talking about it. And we get to Christmas Day. I open up all of my presents. And, I'm like, there's no 64. That stinks. So then my mom gives me this like, we owe you one coupon. And I'm like, oh man, okay, well, at least I'm getting it soon. And so I'm kind of devastated. And for the next 10 minutes go by, maybe it was like only 2 minutes, but it felt like 10. She comes, I can still see her now. She comes out of the basement stairwell, which is because we lived in a duplex. So like a half a house.
Yeah.
And she comes out of the kitchen and starts walking towards, and I see this box with the purple controller, and I flipped out like every other kid that you see on YouTube nowadays from like 20 years ago, where they're like, a computer, and they start freaking out. That's what I remember. So then when I played that game, I can just remember being blown away from the initial cutscene at the very beginning to when you're inside the tree in the village, and that has very fond memories for me. What about you?
Wow, I don't think I can top that at all, man. That's a fantastic story. My first time playing this game wasn't even on the Nintendo 64 at all. It was on the collector's edition on the GameCube disc. Do you know what that is? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to have one, and then I sold it.
Oh, big mistake.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, but that's the one that had Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, and then it had Zelda 1 and 2 on it. Mm-hmm. So I always knew that Ocarina of Time was like the Zelda. That was the big one. And so I first played it on the collector's edition disc. However, I wasn't even old enough to read yet. So my sister would sit next to me on the couch, and we would both play, and she would read the dialogue for me.
That must have been nice.
It was very nice to have her do that so that I could know what was going on.
Sit there and go, oh, I gotta read all this. Yeah. But what I've always appreciated about Zelda is they give you time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't just scroll by. It's like, we'll wait for you, bro. Just catch up when you're ready.
I will actually probably touch on that later because that's one thing on Ocarina. Another thing,
Yeah, why do you say that?
my
I
whole
don't get
life,
it.
whenever I was a kid, I called it Ocarina of Time because that's how I read it. Whenever I learned how to read, that's what my sister said when she read it to me, and so that's just what we thought it was called. I didn't have any friends that played Zelda, so that's what I called it until one day,
Oh, your sister.
yeah,
said
my
it.
sister said it like that. And so one day, whenever was allowed to use YouTube, I was old enough, and I was watching all these videos. I'm like, funny, they're saying it wrong. They're saying Ocarina. That sounds stupid. And now everyone, gets to hear me say Ocarina, and that does
You're
pronounce
still
it pretty.
stuck on it.
Yeah. All right. Question 2 is, what did you most enjoy about the game?
I think what I enjoyed the most was the environment. I mean, it was crazy. I had never this was all new technology. I mean, we had 3D rendered graphics now, and just being able to walk around and run around an environment was like crazy. But you know what I liked the most, and I still like the most to this day, is the music. Even now, I can hear that beginning, just the very beginning when Navi comes to get you. That's what I loved the most, was the music. So much so that as I've grown up, I've begun to try to play those different licks on the guitar, just to recreate the music. That's what I loved the most about this game.
Yeah, the music in this game, I don't know, it's very nostalgic to me. Just like I said in the last video, it can take you right back to the first time you played the game, and
Yep.
I love that about Zelda music in general. My favorite thing about the game, I said, is the world that the game builds around you. And I have 3 things in there, so I might be cheating a little bit, but 3 ways that this game builds an incredible world around you. First, I said the environment. So like you said, the environments are crazy, 3D rendered. I mean, you got the Kokiri Forest. Kokiri?
Yeah, I think it's the second one, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, me either. Because we both don't have a lot of Zelda friends or anything like that. But I'll say the Kokiri Forest.
We are pale kids.
Yeah, maybe. We have Death Mountain, Zora Domain, Gerudo Valley. There's so many different places, and each place has its own unique theme music, which is what I was also going to mention too. And then on top of that, we don't just have the environments and the music, but we also have the characters. Yeah. And so the people in this game, they kind of have a not a relationship. They have a character. They have characteristics about them that make you like them.
So, not to cut you off, but what's your favorite tribe?
Oh, that's
from that game specifically, or I guess it could be all games at this point. What's your favorite tribe?
I really like the Kokiri, the children in the forest. Something about like the Lost Boys and Peter Pan and things like that have always intrigued me, especially as a kid. I wanted to be a kid forever. I think they have more personality because they're kids. I mean, of course, Gorons are lumber and slow.
I love Gorons.
So that's your favorite, I'm guessing.
and Daruk is my favorite. I just love Gorons, and I don't know what it was about them. Hated getting hit by them.
Yeah,
but I love them. So, do you like pre-adult or during the adult? Do you like the kid portion of this game, or do you like the adult portion of this game more?
Man, that's a hard question. I mean, like I was saying, the game builds the world, and it kind of builds the world during the kids section of the game. That's where you get your first peek at all the things. And that's when you build your relationships with the characters. I really love that. But what I was going to say, actually, about being part of my favorite part of the game was that once you cut to the adult side, everything is wrecked and
I hate
dark.
That.
And all your friends are gone, and the world, like the Kokiri Forest, by the way, is like infested with monsters and stuff. And so why I like the world building so much is that when you're an adult and you have to save the world now, it's worth saving because they've made you fall in love with the characters. They've made you fall in love with the landscape. Yeah. And that is my all-time favorite thing about Ocarina of Time. And I think that's what sets it apart from other games too in the series. So, what did you dislike most about Ocarina of Time?
That's a simple question. Completely simple question.
Wow.
I hated those stupid mummy things. The re-deads.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Mhm.
Every single time I'd want to walk around in town and I'd want to explore Castletown. Next thing you know, if I got too close to one of those stupid re-deads, they'd jump on me, they'd scream, and they wouldn't let me alone. I hated that part because I'm 12 years old. It freaked me out because the internet didn't exist yet.
Mhm.
So if you weren't like normally, even though I watched The Terminator growing up, and Silence of the Lambs and other stuff that a 12-year-old or
But
10-year-olds,
Ocarina of Time.
yeah. But it freaked me out. I hated that part of the game. I also hated the very beginning that I had to do it 3 times because for some reason I either had to go. It's like my mom's like, "Hey, we got to go." Woman, I just started Zelda. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to save. Other thing I hated, stupid owl. I know you asked for one thing.
That's okay.
But I hated that owl.
Kepora Gebora.
I hated it because every single time it showed up, since you had played the game 3 times, you knew it was going to be 15 minutes before you got out of that cutscene because he's got too much to say. Sorry, I'm very passionate about those 3 things.
No, that's okay. Something that you mentioned, though, is the game is pretty dark. And especially the N64 version, do you remember the Shadow Temple at all? Or Beneath the Well?
Beneath the Well. Not at this exact moment.
Both of those are kind of like almost torture chamber-esque dungeons. And you see like the crossbars and you see chains, and there's actually like straight up bright red blood on the floor in those dungeons.
Wait, is it the one that the cemetery keeper takes you to? The imp guy? What was his name?
Dompe.
Yeah, is it the one that he takes you to? I hated that part too.
That was the royal family's tomb, but he doesn't technically take you there. That's just the big one. Yeah, that's spooky. I don't know. Something about me kind of likes that. That might be weird, but
that's okay. A lot of people
like spooky stuff.
Spooky stuff, and I think it's just that whole suspense.
What I dislike most, and this might be pretty lame compared to yours. It's just I feel like the space wasn't utilized to the best of the ability.
Man, you just offended like a whole bunch of engineers.
I really did, but like
developers.
I mean, think about it. Like when you're playing A Link to the Past, I know it's a top-down game, but like there's so much architecture and things all about. And I got out to Hyrule Field today when I was just playing around, and I went from the drawbridge all the way back to Lake Hylia, and I put a timer on my phone, and I held the joystick up for 1 minute and 26 seconds, nothing in my way. And that was just it. It was just a green field. And I'm like, man, there's so much they could have put out here. And it's not like the game's lacking in content. Like, they got the shooting gallery, the bomb tube bowling, all that fun stuff to do. I just wish that they kind of spread it out more. Because if you're not just going in the path that you need to go to beat the game, there's really not a whole lot going on the outside that I've noticed.
And I would say, thinking back, that was something that you play a game like Breath of the Wild now, and you're like, I can touch everything. I can chop down a tree. I can do this. And you were expecting to be able to do that in Ocarina of Time, but the game and the technology weren't there yet. So not to, put on a subject on a different game, but I think that's what makes Breath of the Wild so refreshing.
Right.
Like, can we just remake Ocarina of Time like that? Can we take Ocarina of Time as it stands, same shell, but give us access to all of that and see what happens? But you're right, running and having nothing to do. It was kind of like, dang it, I got to go back to Kakarika Village.
It's gonna be a while.
Oh man, I'm like got these little stumpy legs.
And like even like Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, things like those little maps are packed with so much collectibles, things to do. You know what I mean? It's like a big field like Hyrule Field. You'd think that there'd be more than just a few holes in the ground that you can fall into and get some rupees. But I digress. That's all I have to say on that.
Okay.
The next question is, what is your favorite memory with this game?
Hold on. Favorite memory of the game? Favorite memory. Favorite memory is playing with this. This is my original strategy guide from 1998 Nintendo of America. This is Prima's official strategy guide, but I always bought two. I think favorite memory from playing the game is probably Jabu Jabu.
Really?
Yeah, Jabu's belly and that whole entire... I can hear the music now, but being in front of the king, trying to get behind the king to go rescue... what's her name?
Ruto.
Yeah. How about you? What's your favorite memory?
My favorite memory is when I first beat the game. I was in 5th grade, and there was always this hype around Ocarina of Time. Like, I liked Majora's Mask. I liked Link's Awakening. Those were my games. And I even liked the Wind Waker because I was old enough to be playing that, and the game was out. And I was like, man, why does everyone like Ocarina so much? Like, all the artwork you saw of Zelda everywhere, like on how to draw books or magazines. Even though the other games were out, it was still Ocarina Link. And I'm like, the game can't be that good. And when I beat the game and I put the controller down after the end, I was just awestruck. I'm like, that's why this game has the hype. Because it's good. It was such an amazing experience the whole way around. So for the last question, what does this game mean to you today?
That's a good question. What the game means to me is, I think what we've discovered over this whole entire episode is that for me, it's like a portal to when I was a child again. Like, I can play the game and instantly feel like I'm 12 years old again. And I can shut off the rest of the world. I can go into my basement, with the Zelda posters and everything else that's down there, and I can put it on the big screen, maybe. I don't know how it would display, but I can start playing it again. And as soon as I do that, everything else gets shut off, and it takes me back to when I was a kid. And many people experience that same thing. Maybe somebody likes Rocky Road ice cream because it's the first time that they experienced that with their grandmother, and it gives them fond memories. And some people look at us and they say, oh, you're a nerd, you're a geek. I can't believe you're wasting your life playing that game. And it's like, well, what do? You waste your life kicking around a ball. At least I had an adventure and I didn't just stay in the backyard. How about you? What does this game mean to you?
Well, that's hard to top. But for me, this game is definitely a portal, like you said. But I also think that this game reminds me what I love about and why I love The Legend of Zelda so much. It is like the Zelda game. Like we were talking about earlier, why it's the artwork used for everything back in the day. And that's because it's the most Zelda game I think I've ever played. You know what I mean? It's more Zelda than Zelda 1 to me.
Yeah.
And today we still think like, man, whenever we're comparing the new Zelda game, we're like, is it as good as Ocarina?
Yeah, that's right. We do that, don't we?
Right, yeah. We're always looking for Ocarina and all the other games because it's the one. So that's what the game does for me. That's what it means to me.
I've never thought about it that way, but you are right. Every single time there's a new release, you're like, well, how's it compared to Ocarina of Time? But it's kind of unfair to do that because that was a game changer. Play on words. Yeah. No pun intended. Well, Anthony, thanks for joining. Thanks for coming over again to talk about one of our favorite topics. Next week, I think we're talking about A Link to the Past. Hands down is the best video game ever created by anyone, by any developer. So it's undisputed. I look forward to episode number 3 and talking about best video game ever.
All right, if you say so. Thank you so much for watching. We had a great time.
Yeah.
And we want to hear what you guys have to say. I'm going to post the questions down in the comment section and interact. That's what we're here for. We want to hear what you guys have.
Yeah.
So we look forward to reading what you guys put in the comments. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I'm Anthony.
I'm Dave, and we are Carriers of the Legend.